Duggar, my friend, college football, basketball, all things. You've got a podcast, All Ball with Doug Gottlieb on iTunes. Good to see you in, bud. Okay, let's start in two or three things. Okay. Everybody now, if you have an opinion, the blogosphere, you're a hot take. I said this a couple weeks ago. Let's slow down on handing out Heisman's and MVP awards before the biggest games.
I don't understand. The Heisman thing, I don't understand.
It's stupid.
Well, just the whole arcane way in which the voting is compiled.
Yeah,
my goodness. Pro Bowl voting takes place like in week 13.
What are you doing?
I don't know.
Okay, so MVP, I'm like, Andrew Luck is winning his biggest games. He's working with less. Why have we handed this thing over to Mahomes? So is that a hot take?
No, it's not from somebody who's actually watching the sport, right? I mean, Eric Ebron was a bust when he was in Detroit.
Yes.
Now he's outside of Ertz with Philadelphia. And
he's the best tight end in football.
No, those are the three best tight ends in football. That's because of Andrew Luck. Now, look, they've rebuilt the offensive line, and Marlon Mack, who had 139 yards rushing, those are like great finds for Chris Ballard. They did a really good job of fixing this thing in very short order. But none of it works without 12, right? What that guy has done. And look, this doesn't take away from Pat Mahomes and the wow plays. But remember, Pat Mahomes had the league's leading rusher from last year to start the year. They paid $16 million per year for Sammy Watkins, who was the fourth wide receiver of the Rams. He wasn't their best wide receiver. Like, he had Kelsey. He's got Tyreek Hill, maybe the fastest guy to ever play in the National Football League.
They won the division last year.
Correct. So he made a good team and a good offense better. He gave them something he didn't have, and he's a ton of arm talent. But if you want to go with true value, this is like the LeBron statement when Steph Curry won the unanimous MVP. He's like, look, he's had an unbelievable. Do you remember? Everybody said it was some big thing that LeBron said.
So maybe we should just change the name of the award from MVP to Best Player, because the Colts lost the first 5 of their first 6 games.
Well, but it might not. Hold on. He did not, and you're right. He did not throw a regulation football until training camp had already begun.
Yes.
Like, we're judging him now, and you're right.
I'm not saying he's not having a great season, but do the first 6 games not count?
No, but the last 6 games are bigger than the first 6.
It almost should be skewed more.
But it's the whole season, or it's not.
But it's not in the Oscars. It's not. All games are not. September is. By the way, Belichick.
You got to win games in September to make your playoff eligible in January.
Belichick is average in January. Average in September.
The Rams won the Super Bowl in September, right? The Chiefs won it in October. The Saints won it in November, and right now in December, the Chargers are winning the Super Bowl, right? Like, they're just different seasons as they evolve.
Maybe just the name of the award is wrong.
You're right. Listen, you're right. We usually give it the best player who's having the best season with the best team.
Statistically.
Right? But statistically, it's wins and losses.
But it's called most valuable. You are more valuable as a human being. If a wife has a husband that doesn't make much and kids are a pain in the butt, and they don't live in a great neighborhood, and she sends 4 kids to UCLA. That's the most valuable mom. It's not the mom who's got a trust fund, who doesn't have... Like, valuable means, how important are you? Andrew Luck is way more important and valuable.
Well, look, that was the great thing about watching the Colts versus the Cowboys, right? Because... are there other issues at play there? Like, the Cowboys' offensive line is not as good as advertised, right? And their play calling, not giving the ball more to Ezekiel Elliott, I think is problematic. But the fact is, you watch Andrew Luck and how he performed with average surrounding talent at best, especially at the skill positions. And then you watch Dak Prescott struggle, and Daniel Jeremiah, who works for the NFL Network, he calls it tractor and trailer, right? Yeah. One guy can pull a franchise, one guy's along for the ride. Dak's more along for the ride. Andrew Luck is pulling that franchise. Mahomes has ridiculous talent. You know, my question with Mahomes is, we talked about this last week. Some of those throws, you talked about how football is changing. Some of those throws that he makes, they're great in September and October and November and maybe even early December. But all it takes is one turnover to change a playoff game.
Yeah, I like my quarterbacks to look where they're throwing. Call me zany.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying, I think we went into this with LeBron. Like, LeBron should probably win MVP based off of the change that he gives to each franchise he's at every single year. So it's just the name of the award is wrong. It's best player, best year, best team.
Okay. I mean, listen, but the actual name of the award is value, and we're arguing value.
Yeah, so as long as I have to vote on MVP, and it is called most valuable, I think Luck's more valuable.
Yeah, and look, statistics. If you want to go stats and wins, right now you could Phillip Rivers right there. They have the same record.
Yes, sure.
Right? They're sitting their same record. He's got ridiculous numbers, and he just won on the road. And by the way, I think he threw for 400 yards last time against the Chiefs, and they dropped 4 balls in the end zone.
They did.
Right? So, but I don't think Phillip Rivers I think he's incredibly valuable. I don't think he's done that. They have a crazy amount of talent when healthy with the Chargers. They don't have that with the Colts.
Let's talk about Marcus Peters goes into the stands. Fans drive me crazy. You have a thought about, it's funny. You played sports. Some guys are great when you're winning.
Yep. They're called front runners. It's like fans. We live in Los Angeles, and everybody's made fun of Charger fans. I'm actually a Charger fan. Since the Rams left and the Raiders left when I was a kid, I was a fan of the San Diego Chargers. Natrone means business, right? Yeah. Dan the Man Humphreys and late Junior Seau. And now all of a sudden, the Chargers are the hottest ticket in town with Lamar Jackson coming in town Saturday night on the NFL Network. So, fans can be front runners, but when they call a player a front runner, it's different. It means when things are going good, everything's great. And what I was told, and I think I said it on this show, is, look, if the Rams hit no adversity, they don't lose a couple games in a row, if there isn't any opportunity to point fingers at a young guy like Jared Goff, they'll be fine because they have so much talent. But there is a lack of character on some level that caused Marcus Peters to get jettisoned out of Kansas City.
And Aqib Talib has had reputation. When you're winning, Aqib is the best. When you're losing, Denver will tell you.
And Ndamukong Suh, right? And Ndamukong Suh. He's not just hated by fans. He's not liked by front office guys just because he's a mercenary. He does things on his own. And that's great if you're winning. But if you listen to Sean McVay after they lost on Sunday night to the Philadelphia Eagles, every press conference he's like a robot. He's like, that's on me. I got to put him in better positions. He takes all the blame. It's the same press conference, and that was the first time where he was like, look, some of these guys aren't playing like they've been coached to play. He started going, there's some guys that are going astray. The Rams have become an incredibly interesting team because they won the Super Bowl in September. Now all of a sudden they hit adversity in December. People are pointing out, hey, maybe Jared Goff is somewhere in between a total bust in year 1 and a superstar in year 2. And play calling's an issue. Defense is an issue. Wade Phillips' defenses tend to get picked apart late in the season because the formula stays the same. They don't change. They don't evolve. Rams are an interesting team.
By the way, Westbrook and Cam, I don't think it's 100%, but I do see similarities where they're overly dependent on athletic ability. They don't age particularly well. Neither, as analytics come in, one's not a precise passer, one's not a great late-game shooter. I now trust Christian McCaffrey more and Paul George more late. They're expensive. I don't think they'll age particularly well. I said that at the top of the show, and neither wins enough. Cam's got a 6-game losing streak. The Raiders haven't lost 6 straight games. The Bills haven't lost 6 straight games. Russell Wilson's never lost more than 2 straight games. Cam loses too much.
I've never been a huge Cam guy. I will point out he did get to a Super Bowl.
He did.
He won an MVP, even though he wasn't the best player.
Westbrook got to
a final. He wasn't the best player in the league. I like some of the similarities. I do think there's a couple differences there. Look, I'm not in love with Westbrook, but he does give you an amount of effort and competitiveness at the defensive end. He would never watch a football laying in front of him, down 6 in the Super Bowl, and say, hey, I got to make a business decision here the way that Cam did. He's handled press conferences poorly like Cam after big losses, just like Cam did after the Super Bowl. But I think he would give his guts to win a game, whereas I'm not sure that Cam would. We also saw an injured football player. Look, here's the big issue. No one has ever given a blank slate, right? That's really what John Gruden's trying to do, but even John Gruden's going to have to make a decision with Derek Carr.
Right.
You don't, I told the makeup people, I say this all the time, I did not give you a blank canvas. Do the best you can with what I'm giving you. And if you can make me appear at least so that somebody doesn't change the channel so we can get back to Joy and Colin, that's great. That's what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of Cam Newton?
No, I mean, I think.
No, you got to play around. It's a lot like Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. You got to, that's what you got now. And unless you can find somebody in the 4th round who eventually you can develop, unless you have a Tony Romo who you can throw in there, like what are your better options? So you have to put a team around him in place.
And the other thing is because Cam has such a unique style that you have an offense suited for Cam. So you can't draft a pocket passer,
right,
and he's going to sit there for 3 years of practice going, yeah, I'm not an RPO guy.
Well,
it's going to be hard to segue out of Cam.
But that brings me to the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be fascinating. Right? They're going to move on from Flacco.
Yeah.
They're going to give it to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And remember, Lamar Jackson's played against the 5 worst defenses in the NFL, specifically worst run defenses in these last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll see once we get here late December and January. Long term, what do you do? Do you draft 2 Lamar Jackson clones? Because you can find those guys in college.
Yeah.
But if Cam Newton, who is the biggest running quarterback, I mean, he blocks out the sun.
I've stood next to him. He's huge.
He's gigantic. He's an amazing.
He's bigger than your brother, who was a defensive end Hall of Famer.
No question. He would tower over him.
And Jason Taylor is big.
But even Cam Newton has gotten hurt several times over because of the way he plays the position. It's going to happen to Lamar Jackson. How do they support him? Can I give you one last thing?
Okay, 30 seconds, go.
Yeah, you guys talked about fans in the stands and what happens. Do we not remember the malice at the Palace? Bill Burr, who you had on this chair last week, he has a great bit. People should YouTube it during a break, where he talks about Ron Artest went up there and took out a whole row with one punch. Careful calling somebody up there, because someday they're going to come up there, and it's not going to be pretty.
All right, great.